questionings to the ranking member, Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Klein. As the vice-ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, of course, one's background and any potential conflicts of interest are always something that is of high concern. I have not seen any evidence of that here, and I applaud you for your service. In advancing much of our climate policy, I am particularly focused on making sure that we secure good jobs and invest in building and nurturing the skills needed for this new and emerging clean energy industry that is coming, that is here, that has arrived, that is growing, and that will continue to grow, virtually no matter what we do, because the technology is here and the need is here. However, in the 2021 U.S. Energy and Employment Report, it states that only about 10% of solar and wind workers are presently unionized. Dr. Klein, could you speak a bit about how BOEM incentivizes project labor agreements in these offshore wind projects and BOEM's work with labor, state, and local government to ensure that the offshore wind industry is creating union jobs?
Well, thank you so much for the question. I think certainly when the president set a goal of 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030, and then our additional goal to hit 15 gigawatts of floating offshore wind by 2035, he really views this as a way to create jobs here in the U.S., to strengthen our domestic supply chains, and to create real economic opportunities for communities all across the country. So in some of our recent offshore wind auctions, BOEM actually found some innovative ways to include lease stipulations that encourage lessees to really make every available effort to enter into project labor agreements and really ensure that we're creating that pipeline of domestic workers and ensuring that, again, this effort to transition to cleaner energy sources is a job creation opportunity.
Thank you. And Director Klein, I applaud the efforts that BOEM is taking to encourage unionization and PLAs in the offshore wind workforce. I would like to turn now to inquiring a little bit about the community benefits and environmental justice in our offshore wind development. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from Taproot Earth, a global environmental justice organization that was delivered yesterday to BOEM's Office of Emerging Programs. Director Klein, this letter notes that in a previous offshore wind lease sale notice for waters off the coast of California, BOEM provided a 2.5% credit to developers if they entered into a community benefit agreement. CBAs are agreements signed by community groups and developers that identify community benefits that the developer will provide in return for the community support for the project. However, in BOEM's February 2023 public sale notice for the Gulf of Mexico, no such CBA incentive is offered. So Director Klein, could you please explain how BOEM chooses to incentivize community benefit agreements in their offshore wind lease sales?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Certainly, again, we really are working very hard at BOEM to find innovative ways throughout the process, including the leasing process, to incentivize not just the domestic supply chain, but also ensuring that communities have a real voice in this development moving forward. So you mentioned the community benefit agreements, which are something we have deployed in California. I don't have the details of the Gulf of Mexico proposed sale notice, but would be happy to sort of follow up with your staff to get you those details. I would also say that environmental justice concerns that have been raised to us by communities across the country are also at the forefront of our minds, and so we're working, for instance, in New York and New Jersey to do quarterly community meetings where stakeholders come together and exchange feedback and ensure that we're really bringing benefits to these communities moving forward.
Thank you. Director Klein and Deputy Director Huang, in a recent GAO report, it was revealed that since the 1960s, Bessie and BOEM for it has allowed the offshore oil and gas industry to leave 97% of pipelines. That's 18,000 miles of infrastructure on the seafloor of the Gulf of Mexico when no longer in use. This infrastructure is now inhibiting the development of offshore wind. Deputy Director Huang, I understand that BSEE has discretionary authority to enable oil and gas companies to decommission in place. Can you speak a little bit as to why we are not presently requiring that companies clean up old pipelines? And also, if, and Director Klein, can BOEM potentially mandate that oil and gas lessees hold fully vested trusts that ensure cleanup of infrastructure and wells?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Congresswoman. We at BSEE are in charge of the entire life cycle, including decommissioning and timely decommissioning. We work closely with offshore producers to ensure that they're true to their commitments. And we've done a couple of things recently to improve that. One was an update to our financial assurance rule to ensure that all parties, not just the current operator, get together and determine how best to address the decommissioning issues and liabilities. Secondly, we also are updating completely our Subpart J regulations to ensure that we're looking at leak detection, pipeline integrity, and also removal of pipelines no longer used to ensure that they're environmentally safe and compliant and removed when not used.
I believe Director Klein has.
Director, do you want to follow up on that quick, like?
Sure. Thank you. I would just say, building off of what Deputy Director Wong mentioned, we work closely with